Welcome back to another episode of the Girl Stop Playin podcast. It's your favorite homegirl, Coriel, here to encourage you to stop playing with your potential and start working for what you want in life and in love. You already know that I'm bringing you the information and the conversations to help you make the money and get the honey. You can have it all as long as you are willing to work. And you are in for a treat on today's show because we have a whole lineup, okay? A couch full of beautiful Black women who are here to talk about a very important conversation, okay? I like to be silly. We like to have fun here on Girl Stop Playin, but today is going to be more of a serious conversation because it's literally a matter of life and death at this point. I believe we were experiencing several pandemics before the pandemic. This is just, has been the most popular one, but the Black community has been under attack for generations. And so I think that it's so important that we stop only talking about the problems, but start sharing some solutions. And so we got some solutions in the building. All right. So we're going to start on the end. Solution number one, what's your name? Introduce yourself. We're going to get in y'all business a little bit too. I ain't tell y'all that part.
That's all right.
So introduce yourself, your name, your title, or what it is that you do, and your relationship status.
Absolutely. So I am Dr. Maya McCarthy. I am a board certified pediatrician, but I am also a concierge fertility strategist and coach.
Love
okay.
it.
And so my status is I am married.
Yes, married. Okay.
So I'm Andrea Blanton. I am a doula for pregnancy and birth, getting into postpartum care, and I am currently in a relationship with my child's father.
Okay.
Yes, my name is Michaela Walker, and I am an advocate for postpartum mental illnesses and physical illnesses, and I also advocate for maternal mortality. And I am in a relationship.
So, guys, as you can see, the topic of conversation today is Black women's womb wellness. I have had several conversations with sisters sitting right on this couch who have talked about everything from fibroids several times to other infertility issues. We had one young lady who at I think the age of 30 discovered she was going through perimenopause. And I'm just like, this is not okay. For me personally to sit here and continue to consume these stories, share these stories, but then not also sit here and try to share some solutions.
Right.
So that's what we're here for today. And so I want to just start with a very general question around some of the most common issues. I'm going to start with you, Dr. Maya.
Okay.
Some of the most common issues that Black women specifically are facing when it comes to our womb wellness.
So far and away, we are disproportionately affected by fibroids, endometriosis, PCOS, the list goes on. And it all contributes to infertility in the African American community. And just as you say, it's not something that we talk about, but it's something we need to. Like, nobody's having this conversation around Thanksgiving dinner.
Right.
But we need to.
Yes.
To that point, one of the young ladies who sat here and talked about her fibroids, she didn't realize that fibroids ran in her family until she was diagnosed with fibroids and started asking questions.
Exactly.
And then her mom and her aunts and everybody's like, well, yeah, this is just kind of, you're a Black woman. This is the cards that you're dealt basically
Right.
as a Black woman, which first of all, that's not true.
Right.
Okay. I don't think that should be an expectation. I'm a Black woman. I'm going to develop fibroids one day.
Right.
But also, where is the conversation? Where's the preventative conversation?
Correct.
Right.
Or even just the awareness of these are the things that are prominent in our family. Let's
Right.
talk about what we can
Exactly.
start doing to, end it with us. And so what are you all, I guess, seeing mostly with the women that you're working with that they're experiencing?
So I work with women who are expecting children and women who have had children. And I focus on their mental health and their physical health. So a little backstory about myself. I almost lost my life giving birth in 2020. I had a great pregnancy. I didn't even know you can have complications after you give birth, but that's a thing. And so ever since then, my bout with postpartum, I've just been going around and advocating for women, especially Black women, because we are dying at an alarming rate, more than the white woman. And so I feel like through advocacy and people knowing what to look for when they're having a baby, while they're pregnant and afterwards too, we can improve the mortality rate.
Absolutely.
I want to bring back up something that you mentioned in terms of the fact that you had like a perfect pregnancy. That is a common story of so many women who have just no hiccups, nothing abnormal, and then that baby comes out and things just go haywire. What do you mind sharing what you dealt with after your birth?
So yes, like I said, I had an uneventful pregnancy, but after I gave birth, my doctor noticed that my blood pressure was going up, and I never had blood pressure issues, never. And so they made me stay a week after giving birth. Even though my baby was able to go home, I had to stay. They released me a week later, and I was home for 2 days, and my blood pressure went to 246.
Oh my goodness.
Over 130. And so I called my doctor. I was like, do you think I should take a nap? Will it go down? She was like, no, I think I should meet you at the hospital. And they gave me a lot of preventive medicines to try to bring my blood pressure down. It wasn't working. So I ended up in the ICU. And that was an experience. I was very afraid. I'm like, I just had a baby. Am I going to, be here to raise my son that I just gave birth to? But by the grace of God and my doctors, I had an amazing team of doctors. Let me say that. They listened to me and they cared for me and advocated for me. And I'm still here.
Amen.
So I had to go home on blood pressure medicines, and I had to change my diet. But also when I got home, I started having postpartum anxiety and depression, very scared from my stay in the ICU. And so now I'm an advocate, but I can relate to women who have had complications, physical and mental complications.
Your story is almost identical to my story. And another guest that I had on the pod, like almost identical to, I got to go home, and then I had to come right back to the hospital. And being away from your newborn, I mean, there is no feeling. It's almost like being in prison because you can't leave.
Right.
Like you're almost being held against your will. And it's like,
Right.
I've just delivered a child. You during your pregnancy, you hear all about the skin to skin and all of the things that are so important.
Yes.
And now I can't be with my child. That will lead you into depression. If you weren't already, there's just so much that women have to deal with. And when you have never heard of anybody else dealing with these things and you find yourself in a situation, you think it's only you. And that can be lonely. That can be depressing. That can, lead to a host of other issues as well. And so, Dr. Maya, I know you're not an OB, but is this, because 2 out of 4 women, and I don't, know your stories.
Listen,
Yes.
I'm about to say 3 out of 4 women because my birthing experience was somewhat similar. Now, it was different in that I conceived via IVF. And so that's another topic that as African American women, we don't talk about.
That is
as
true.
a community, we don't talk about. It's looked upon as being taboo. I know when I realized that was going to be the way that I had to conceive, my family was like, you doing what now? And so, it was a whole education process with my family, talking to them about the steps and what was involved and everything. And not to mention the cost. It was very expensive. But IVF conception or pregnancy already has its risks.
Right.
So I was already advanced maternal age. I conceived via IVF. And so I had to see my OB and my perinatologist almost every other week. I was flip-flopping. I went into the pregnancy 80 pounds heavier than I am now and with chronic hypertension. And so I knew that hypertension was going to be an issue. And I, sure enough, developed preeclampsia and HELP syndrome, which is another complication at 25 weeks.
Wow.
That's early.
It is early, yes. And I went I went to my doctor's office thinking I'm good. And she's like, your blood pressure's up. I was like, girl, tell me something else new. We know my blood pressure up. She's like, no, but it's up for real this time. You need to go to the hospital. This is going to be a 24-hour stay. We're going to let you go home. Everything will be fine. I checked in that Friday. By that Sunday, my liver enzymes had quadrupled.
Whoa.
My liver was swelling.
Mhm.
And they told me we have to deliver right now.
Oh my goodness.
So I'm now facing delivery of a 25-weeker. I knew the consequences of that because I'm a pediatrician. I knew too much about it, and it scared me right at the beginning of the pandemic.
Wow.
So I went on bed rest March 4th. World shut down, March 13th? I delivered May 17th.
Wow.
And didn't know if my husband could be there with me. I too stayed in the hospital a week after I delivered. I could not see my baby until her 3rd day of life because I was on medications to keep me safe, keep me from developing seizures. The skin to skin we didn't do. And we spent 81 days back and forth to Northside Hospital, summer of 2020.
Wow. Well, I gave birth in 2020.
Did you?
I did.
Yeah. I never imagined that would have been my story. Never would have imagined it. But just like you, I am an advocate out here letting people know I had a great team of doctors. I chose them for a reason.
Yes.
I had to go into the hospital making sure my husband knew exactly what to do and what to say, just in case something happened to me. And I shouldn't have to do that in the United States of America in 2020, 2023. I shouldn't have to do it.
You shouldn't.
But I had to because I knew that had I not, something would have happened to me.
Mm-hmm.
The stack of paperwork that I attempted a home birth in 2021, did not work out. And my midwife ended up sending me to the hospital, but I had this stack of paperwork. Y'all know the birth rights documentation, the crazy lady paperwork that you bring. If y'all bring in that stack of paperwork to the hospital, you're gonna be the crazy lady room. And I'll be the crazy girl. Yes, I will be the crazy lady room, but I'm gonna be the lady who's going to advocate for herself.
Yes,
I'm going to be the lady who's going to tell you what we're going to do, and you're not going to dictate to me unless it truly is life or death.
Right.
And I think so many women don't know what to say, don't know what they can say, feel like they are not allowed to say, feel like they don't have a say. And on my second stay, when I went back, because I'm like a real rebel and I felt fine. That's the thing about blood pressure too.
Yes.
I felt fine,
Yes.
right? And so I'm like, is this really serious? I want to go home to my baby. I just had a baby. And I said, well, what are y'all going to do if I leave? And they basically said that if I would have left against their will, that I would have been responsible. Insurance wouldn't cover any of my bills, basically. And so it truly is, you almost are in prison. You can't just get up and walk out of there unless you want $100,000, in debt when you leave.
Right.
And so for so many women, they are not able to advocate for themselves. They don't know what their rights are. They aren't prepared when they step foot into those doors. They don't have a husband necessarily that's going with them.
Right.
And it's just, it's inhumane that we live in the United States of America, right? We're living this American dream, but babies are dying at alarming rates, and Black women are dying at alarming rates. And the state of Georgia is like the worst in the country.
And I feel like a part of that is because, so I go down to Mercer. I've been there twice, and they have an initiative program down there, and it's a rural area. So sometimes the women are an hour and a half from their doctors.
From closest care.
Or they cannot afford, they don't have a car, they can't get to where they need to be. It's they have limited resources. And so you also have racist doctors.
Yeah, totally.
Those exist. And it's bad down there. And we have some work to do.
We do.
So,
we do.
Coriel, to your point, and thank you all for sharing y'all stories. And I'm so grateful that you all, one, had your own voices and had a great care team. I think a doula is crucial, a birth worker, someone to be a companion to the mothers. Did you have a doula?
We'll talk about my doula.
Okay.
Explain what a doula is.
So
though,
a
for people who don't know.
doula, for some, and this is, the words that we use are given to us, but doula in the Greek form actually means slave. How?
Shut your
Yes,
mouth.
yes. However, it has been taken over in a sense in our new day where it's your sister friend. It could have been for us, our cousin, our grandmother at a time, but it's really someone who advocates for you, who provides you support. Could be during, before labor, physically, mentally, and emotionally. She cares for the mom and whomever else is in the birth team. So for the fathers, nothing technical. We leave that up to the midwives, the doctors, and the nurses. However, she's there to rub your feet, give you a back massage, press those pressure points, use some essential oils to calm you. If you're nauseous, give you a little peppermint oil to sniff. Make sure you're hydrated, which is key for mothers during labor. And she's that person you can text. Hey, I noticed that my blood pressure is high. I couldn't get in touch with my midwife. What do you think I should do? Instantly go to the hospital or check in with your midwife. So she's there to care for you when you feel like no one else is there to care for you. She's your voice. When you are in a hospital or in a home birth situation and you're not feeling comfortable enough to say, hey, I don't really like this position. I need to walk around. Why do I feel like this? She's that person who could be your voice when you feel like you don't have one.
So important.
Yes,
So to answer your
it
question,
is.
yes, I had a midwife and a doula for the home birth I was planning into 2021. I got impatient
Okay.
and did the brew, the
Uh-huh.
castor oil.
The castor oil brew.
Ended up dehydrating myself, and that's how I ended up in the
goodness.
hospital.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's how I ended up. And I made that face because my doula suggested it. I clearly, I'm
So,
a grown ass woman.
and that's
I'm a grown ass woman. I
and
take
that's-
responsibility.
No,
But
that's
girl,
a
I'm still
line.
mad at you.
That's a thin line. And
Yeah.
to that doula, we're not supposed to give out medical advice. So
That's why it's like, I'm a grown woman. I can't really blame her, but girl,
right.
I'm side-eyeing still because
Yeah.
my shit went up in flames. Okay, it did not work out for me. But the fact that this is such a common scenario is outrageous. You have
I have 5 children of
Girl,
my
shut up.
own. Have
Girl,
5
we should have
children.
started with this.
know,
Okay,
right?
wait a minute. Do you each both have one child?
I'm one.
I
have
have one
2.
child.
2, 1.
I'm one.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm one mom, 3 dads,
Okay.
5 children. We all get along.
Okay.
And 3
You got a
hospitals.
village? Like y'all all get along?
We do.
in
Like
community?
my car was acting up on the way here. I had to call one of the dads and jump in his car to come over. And we just took all the kids to a water park on Sunday. So
I
That's
love that for you,
amazing.
actually.
thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. It's a radical act of love.
Mhm.
Something that we in the Black community, we all got that uncle who had many kids or that grandpa who kids across the way. But I wanted to create a space where my children felt comfortable and not ashamed of the fact that there's different dads. So yeah.
I commend you for
Thank
that.
you.
Right.
The last birth for my I had a home birth. So 2 home births, 3 hospital births, no medication.
In all 5?
In all 5.
Ooh,
Now,
child.
when I got to about that 8 centimeter, I was like, "Can I get an epidural?" And the midwife was like, "Actually, you're already about
We don't
8."
even have time for that.
No, couldn't even fill up the birth pool. Go ahead and squat it out. So, this last birth was actually, and I'm not telling women to do this unassisted. It's up to you. But physiologically, I knew where I was. I got to a point where I did call the midwife. I said, "I want to go to the hospital. I want an epidural." I had to throw the phone because at that point, I told the dad, "You're going to have to catch the baby." So I had the baby at the sink. I was standing at the sink. He caught the baby, and the baby came out. Midwife came over to do the post care, birthing the placenta, which is something women don't realize. We also have to birth the placenta.
Right.
But yes, so 5 children. In my first birth, so how I got into birth work, my dad was my labor coach in 2008.
Wow.
And I was literally in the hospital room by myself. The midwives, they were tending to other patients, didn't know that a midwife is not there with you the entire time, or an OB's not there with you. My dad was smoking cigarettes, going to drink coffee, and I was in there by myself. And I said, I just need somebody I had to get a hot towel myself. I had to cool myself off. I had to walk myself around the room. I had to sit myself on a birthing ball. But I did a lot of reading like you. I had my paperwork. I had my birth plan. I knew what I wanted. But I couldn't even afford a doula at the time. So I had to ask my dad. And after that birth, my son was born healthy. Thanks the Lord. But I said, I want to be there for other women. Like, I shouldn't have to get my own towel. I shouldn't have to try to massage myself. I shouldn't have to cry alone. And
Mhm.
so at that point, I said, I want to become a birth worker. And so I want to
Wow.
support moms if they have it or not. So I do offer services for moms who can't afford it or for moms who do. And in my second birth with my daughter, afterwards, I had postpartum depression, was afraid to go and say that this is what I have. Had a failed relationship, was fighting with the dad, didn't have financial support at the time. And I said, you know what? I got too much education. I have too much smarts for this, and too much strength. Like my grandmother's was like, you can do this. You can be
Yes.
a single mom. So I stepped out on faith. Someone suggested a birth a community doula program for me to attend. It was free for mothers in the community. We had 120 hours with OBGYNs, pediatricians, lactation consultants, midwives. And from there, so in 2013, I got my doula certification. And the ground has just been lighting up since then. And so
Wow.
Where your kids at right now? How are you living your life with five? I mean, seriously, women are
so I'm actually
superheroes.
6 months postpartum as we speak.
Shut up.
Yes, I'm lactating.
Girl.
So if I start linking on screen.
Right. Yes. So
Wow.
December, you had a baby in December?
I did.
Okay.
December 28th.
Okay.
He was born.
Congratulations.
Thank you. His name's
Yes.
Akir, and it means the last.
That's it. I know that's right.
Like,
So,
clear. Let's be clear.
my children, they're at home.
And you just living like,
I
girl,
am.
these
But this
two
is-
are slowing me down over here.
Right.
But this is like you know, for you, your work is with children. Your work is with postpartum moms. Your work is with getting voices out, right? My work is to assist women who are birthing, to make sure that they have that friend where they feel the support.
So in my opinion, or I guess in my world, the concept of a doula is obviously it's not new because for ages
we've been
we've
supporting
had
each other.
doulas.
Mhm.
So I don't know if I'm just coming to the party because I just had a baby. You know,
Mhm.
obviously I heard of a doula before that,
Mhm.
but is this like a concept or something that's becoming more popular?
It is, and surprisingly, maybe with the numbers of
the maternal
The
mortality.
mortality
Yeah.
rate and infant mortality. You know, back then when I did it in 2013, it was not really heard of. People like,
Mhm.
what you want to do that for? Why you were trying to help? What?
Even when a woman hires a doula, it's almost like, what do you need that
So
for?
I've had fathers say, why do we need to pay for
Mhm.
this?
Mhm.
And so there's now evidence. There's
Mhm.
evidence-based data that shows women actually the birthing rates, the time that they're in labor is actually shortened, and the mom complications are lessened in a way.
That sounds
do that
like less
support.
money for a hospital.
But
That's what I'm hearing.
actually,
That's why.
yeah, that's why, you know. And so, you know,
And then to take it back, I mean, this is what Black women have birthed this nation,
This world.
this
Mhm.
Yes.
world. This is what we have been doing for centuries.
Mhm. Mhm.
Being a doula for an African American
Exactly.
woman, for an African woman, is not anything new
No.
at all.
No.
Mhm.
This is what our people did on the continent and still do
Mhm.
on the continent. They may not call it a doula,
Yeah.
but they do have someone there to support.
Mhm.
Women have been giving birth since the beginning of time.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
it's just now, you know, people are like, oh,
We need this.
we need this.
So with the history of medicine in America, I want to say 1920-ish, 30-ish,
Mhm.
there was a lot more midwives or sister
Yes.
friends who were doing this work in the
Yes.
rural areas.
Yes.
Of course, in the cities where we were. And because it wasn't profitable
Yeah.
Mhm.
for the man or the medical structure, they said you have to be licensed now, right? So you have
Mhm.
more nursing, you have more
Mhm.
midwives who are actually being persecuted, kind of like a new age witch hunt.
Mm-hmm.
But it was us who were providing that care, and so it's funny how we revert back as a nation to the things that
Mhm.
actually worked.
Yes.
The crazy thing is, though, this is the original way of
Mhm.
birthing, right?
Mhm.
Westernized medicine and this procedural
Mhm.
Sterile
birthing.
environment.
Yeah, it's like an assembly line. Okay, you do this, now you do that. Okay, you're
Mhm.
next up. We're making our rounds. We're
Mhm.
checking you off the list. Okay,
Mhm.
you did. Birth, first of all, is like the closest thing to death.
It
That's
is.
first of all.
You're at the veil, yeah.
Second of all, it's one of the, especially for a first time mother, one of the most scariest, because you don't watch all these
Oh,
movies.
my
You,
gosh.
I mean, the anxiety behind, you're
Right.
terrified.
Birth dogs.
So to
Right.
go
Oh.
through this in an environment where it's like somebody's coming in and they're clearly just working a job versus a doula who's in this because she cares. A midwife is in this because she cares about this process. It's just a totally different thing. But we've gotten to the place now where it's frowned upon if you want to have a home birth. People think you're crazy. Why would you want to risk it? And they don't realize the risk of going to the hospital.
Yeah.
Right. I get that all the time, actually, you know, as a pediatrician. So a lot of times, well, not all the time, but we will see the baby in the hospital if there are complications.
Okay.
And it happens, you know, and I think of a mom recently that came in and she was feeling guilty that she decided to do a home birth. I said, why?
Yeah.
Why? You made the decision and it's still a good decision. Yes, your baby is here, but we're going to be all right.
Yeah.
And your baby's going to be just fine. But you made the decision that was best for you and your family at that time. And that's what we want you to do. However, if there are complications, bring the baby right on. And we will take care of the child. So don't feel guilty in your choice.
So I want to ask you, Dr. Maya, because recently there was a popular like news story where a family had a home birth. Ended up taking the baby to the doctor. Baby had jaundice. I think they wanted to recommend a treatment. The mom didn't want it. And then CPS showed up at the house to take the baby. How common is that? And what can we do to protect ourselves? Because that's scary as hell. And I could see that scaring a mom away from having a home birth.
Oh, absolutely. It's a stereotype. First of all, they probably just looked at the situation and assumed, made a whole bunch of assumptions, and that provider didn't take the time to really hear that mother. Why don't you, want this treatment? This is what, we recommend. This is best practices. Help me understand what your barrier is to accepting the treatment. And then let's work together on figuring out a better way to do it, because there's multiple ways to skin a cat in medicine usually. I mean, the baby may not have needed to come into the hospital. The baby might have done okay with a Billy blanket at home to cure the or to take care of the hyperbilirubinemia. That's what the medical diagnosis is. But there's multiple ways to really get around the issue or the challenge. And all it was that worker, unfortunately, or workers decided, oh, I'm going to label this mother or this family as, they're not wanting care. They're resistant to care. They're resistant to what the medical team is saying. Oh, let's call CPS. And whenever historically in our community, when we hear those three letters, it's always, they're trying to take my baby away from me. Historically, that's been the case.
Yeah. I think that keeps culturally, that keeps us also away from expressing our mental state, right?
I was just going to say
or
that.
saying, oh, I think my blood pressure is high.
Right.
For me, I was afraid to call and say, hey, I'm having some issues with nursing. Sometimes when you're breastfeeding, that's another stigma in our community at times. I need some help,
But you're scared to speak up. You're scared of what the consequences are going to be. During this last pregnancy, because I had a C-section the first time, they wanted to schedule me for a C-section at 39 weeks. I'm like, well, if y'all schedule me at 39 weeks, you're not even giving my body a chance.
To birth,
So I'm like, no, if that's what I end up doing, fine. But I at least want to see, can my body even go into labor naturally?
Yeah.
And so the doctor literally said out of her mouth, that's fine. But I just want to let you know that you might end up giving birth in a hostile environment for going against, the doctors. And I was just like,
really?
Hostile
in a
environment.
hostile, I just want to warn you. She was real nice about it. I just want to warn you. If you don't go with this recommendation, it's fine.
Right.
But you might end up giving birth in a hostel. And I'm like, well, it was pretty hostile the first time, so I don't, think it's going to be too friendly.
And
But the fact that that's a thing,
It is.
though,
It
is
is.
like, if I don't do with my body, what you want me to do with my body,
Exactly.
I'm going,
It's a problem.
like, it's a problem. Yeah, I'm breaking the law or something. So that I think is what Black women immediately think about when they say, I don't want to go to the hospital.
Right.
Or, these are the stories that we are considering. In that case, though, do we have any rights truly?
You do. You absolutely do. I mean, just you kid, but it's true. You have rights when you go into that hospital, and you have the right to let them know what your plan or your birthing plan or what you would like for it to
Your
be.
intention.
Your intention. Now, of course, things happen. Birthing is unpredictable sometimes, and so it may not always go as planned, and so you do have to be a bit flexible.
Right.
But you still do have rights. You have the power. I mean, it's your body.
Yes.
And it's your it's your insurance.
That part.
And I express to the birthing folks when we're there in the hospital, this is your birth plan. Yes, you've given it to the nurses and the doctors. We do have to be flexible because things do arise. Let's hear it out. Let's ask, what are all of my options
Correct.
instead of being presented, well, this is what you have to do, right? At 39 weeks, let's sign you up for a cesarean section. Well, wait. How about we wait till about 40 weeks? Okay. Well, we might have to go to 41, but these are your options. So informing, like educating
Yes.
ourselves, right? I know we
Mhm.
can read all the books, but also having a second,
Opinion.
a second opinion,
Yeah.
a
Mhm.
helping ear,
Mhm. Mhm.
really helps in those environments as
Mhm.
well.
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm. What would you all say in terms of prevention? If there is something, anything that we could possibly offer as a solution for maybe an expecting mother out there? Because I don't want to scare y'all, because that
Yeah.
baby got to come out. Okay. So I don't want to
It's
scare you. The
coming.
baby is coming. But
Yeah.
what is there anything that can be done as far as prevention for some of these complications or issues?
Well, I always when I'm telling my story, because some women they look at me like, I can tell they're afraid. I
Mhm.
tell my story and I advocate not to take the joy away from giving birth or childbirth. It's just to simply inform them.
Mhm.
And so to prevent some of the complications, I feel like you need to be in tune with your body.
Mhm.
Listen to
Mhm.
your body, and also
Mhm.
listen to your providers. Yes, you can have a birth plan, and you
Mhm.
can you have rights, and you can say what you want to happen and what you don't want to happen, but don't you guys need to work together as a team. I feel
Mhm.
like that's why I'm still here, and that's why I went on to have another birth,
Mhm.
because I listened to my doctors and they listened to me. But that's a big thing. Listen to your body.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. And if you're considering having children at some point in life, it's really important to think about what that process is going to look like years ahead of time,
Yes.
right? So I mentioned that I was 80 pounds heavier than I am now. If there was one thing that I wish that I would have changed, it would have been to lose weight.
Wow.
My IVF procedure would have been better. My pregnancy would have been better. And I knew all those things, but I still didn't do it. My blood pressure might have been better controlled. I mean, who knows? So that meant that I had to really take ownership of my body and be like, okay, Maya, you are 230 pounds at 5 feet, 4.5 inches. That's too heavy for you. Let's lose some weight. And so, had I done that, maybe things would have been different. Now, I'd always been on blood pressure medicine. I'd had high blood pressure for years prior to me getting pregnant. But again, an IVF pregnancy does increase your risk of preeclampsia in the first place, and hypertension problems during the pregnancy. But had I changed my diet a little bit, we do recommend sometimes the Mediterranean style of eating is better
What
when
is the
you're.
Mediterranean style?
So it's basically lean meat. You want to do lots of nuts. You're staying away from a lot of the processed foods. So you really want to focus on the protein component. You don't want to ever eliminate any food group completely from your diet. Your body needs all of those food groups, but it's important to kind of focus on the unprocessed foods or the less processed foods, lean meats, beans, nuts, whole grains. Those kinds of foods are helpful when you're trying to conceive. And certainly when you're pregnant, I know at least my people say, well, you eating for two, so you gotta eat
Don't
everything.
do it.
Don't do it.
From the rooter to the tutor.
Listen, don't do like me. I went through Chick-fil-A every day. See, that was part of my blood pressure
that was
issue.
that,
That was my
yeah.
blood pressure.
That's
I
sodium.
should not have done that. I knew better. But every time I passed by that
It was
store, I
calling
was
you.
like,
That little
calling
cow
me.
was out front saying,
Fries.
come on
Yes,
in,
come
eat more
on in.
chicken.
But just things like that, just practically that you can do to prevent some of these complications from happening is so important.
Super
It makes
important.
your journey going forward that much easier.
And I also want to touch on, you said preconception. Think about it before you get pregnant.
Before.
And so I was at Mercer last month, and Dr. Baker, she's a OBGYN down there.
Mhm.
She is fabulous. Okay.
Mm.
She was saying that we have to start going to preconception appointments,
Mhm.
like plan. Now, I
Mhm.
didn't plan any of my children. I was just
Out here.
surprised.
Girl, right.
I was out here too, so it's all
You
good.
ain't had a chance to plan that.
But if you are intentional about, you know, when you want to have children, and you know you've gotten married, or even if you know haven't got married, but if you know you want to have kids, have a preconception appointment. I feel like the
Mhm.
doctors can
Mhm.
inform you about your
Where
risk.
you
You can
are.
talk about your family history, because like you
Mhm.
said about the fibroids, a lot of women don't know that something runs in their family until they're faced
Mhm.
with it.
Mhm.
Yeah, and if you don't wait until you're pregnant
Right.
to start
Correct.
discovering all of the
Right.
things that you might
Correct.
be predisposed to. I do want to get into IVF though,
Mhm.
because as you mentioned, it's going on out here,
It
Yeah.
is.
but
Yes.
Black women
Heavily.
don't want to talk about it.
And you know, I really don't understand why. I mean, and I do. Let me just say this. I do, because I really do think that it's because of the reproductive trauma that we have sustained as African American women in this country for centuries. If you were an African American woman slave who could produce a child, then you were more valuable to that slave owner. Let's just be honest. You could produce more labor.
Later.
And so that then meant that you attached your worth as a woman to your ability to conceive.
Yes.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so then come on down the line, 2000s, and you can't conceive,
Mhm.
or you don't know that you can conceive until you start trying and you're having challenges to conceive. It really does affect your self-worth
Yeah.
as a woman. This is what we were created to do. And so I know my grandmother birthed 9 children. I have 5 aunts, and I don't recall any conversations being had about anybody having any difficulty having children. Not that it didn't happen, but it wasn't talked about.
Right. Right.
So then when it came time for me, and here I am deciding to pursue medicine, hello, residency. I mean, all these years of training, I got married later in life, and we decided to expand our family. And they was like, no, ma'am. You're going to have some problems. You got PCOS, you've danced around with diabetes, you got chronic hypertension. This is going to be an uphill battle for you. My saving grace, prevention. My OB said to me when I was 34, Maya, if you have any want to start a family at all, you're going to need to look into freezing your eggs.
But you had someone to tell you that.
Was it a white woman?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope. It was a Black woman. And I chose her again on purpose. But she had that very real conversation with me. Had she not mentioned that to me, I probably wouldn't have my daughter now. And so I went through the process then. I was single as a dollar bill. And I got 6 eggs. Now, that's not usual for an IVF, procedure when you're harvesting eggs. Usually most women can get like 15, 20, large amounts of eggs. But because I had PCOS, sometimes you can get more, but those follicles are not mature eggs. There's no mature eggs in them. So I only had 6. So I took my little 6, put them on ice, and I was like, all right, let me go on about my merry little way. Found my husband found me, and we got married. And I said to the reproductive endocrinologist that we wanted to try again, and she said, "Okay, let's go through this process again." And she sat there. My husband had to have a procedure after it was over and unsuccessful. She sat there and looked at both of us and said, "You will never have your own biological child."
What would possess someone to say that out of their face to anyone?
We hardly ever say the word never
Yeah.
in medicine. And I just looked at her and was like, "You said what now?" I mean, and everything else she said out of her mouth after that was just a stream of tears down my face. I didn't hear anything she said. I know she said something about an embryo adoption. I know she said something about an egg adoption or a sperm adoption, neither of which I had even thought of, considered, nothing. And
What
so
does that even mean?
right. So you can actually adopt an embryo.
Wow.
So there are some couples who've gone through the IVF procedure and they've created embryos that they're not going to use. You can actually decide to give them for adoption.
Wow.
Okay, I'm sorry. I know you. I'm gonna let you keep going, but wait a minute. How does this?
Yes.
So, and then I'm artificially inseminated with
Yes,
that embryo.
the embryo is transferred into your uterus.
Okay.
Wow, I did not know
Me
that was a
neither.
thing.
Yes, so they actually kind of mimic what the hormonal thing, what it would be like to be pregnant, and implant that embryo right into your uterus, and you're pregnant.
Interesting.
Okay.
Or you could opt to, purchase an egg. There are egg donors, people that donate to banks. Now, I will say there's not a lot of African American eggs available.
Need to write that.
There are not a lot of African American sperm that are available, but you can choose your egg, choose your sperm, fertilize the two, and now you have your own embryo.
But in your case, you were able to go back to those 6.
I was. I was
Okay.
able to go back to the 6, and then we tried again. We actually switched providers.
I know
Great,
you did.
great.
We
Couldn't run out that
went
office
with
quick enough.
yes, we went with somebody who was committed to helping us grow our family, and
Great.
so he said, "Okay, let's do this again." I eked out 3. I mean, by the hair of my chin.
Okay.
And so I put the 2 together. So I had 9 total. Out of those 9, 8 fertilized, and they have to go through a period of growth. So they allow them to grow in the lab. Once they get to a certain stage in growth, they will send pieces of it to testing. We decided to do the genetic testing because of my age and, all of the medical diseases I had at that time. And so by the time all is said and done, I had 2 genetically normal embryos that were just as much my genetic material and my husband.
I love
Yes.
it.
Beautiful.
And one of them is my 3-year-old
Come
daughter.
on.
Yes.
I would be sending pictures of my baby to that doctor's office every year.
Listen, Corey, I started to be petty like that. I did. It crossed my mind. I did. And I was like, no, I'm not going to even do it. I'm going to just be out here and start the
Blessed with
doctor's
my
wound
Yeah.
to let people know that you have some solutions. Don't let
Yes.
anybody tell you if this is what you want to do, have a baby. Don't let them tell you you
Yeah.
can't, because there are options. There
Wow.
are options.
There is. I have 3 friends who, in their careers, we went to Spelman, we graduated. Everyone's,
You went to Spelman
Everyone-
too? Yes.
Sorry.
It's
Had a moment.
but they did similar journeys.
Yes.
2 out of 3 so far. 2 just had their babies,
That's
and one she's still
wonderful.
working on it.
Yeah.
But it's something that I didn't learn about until they shared it as well.
Mhm.
So I'm
'Cause we
glad
don't
that the
talk
news
about
is
it.
spreading too, though, and
Yes.
it's an opportunity for us.
I've
Yeah.
heard that white women gift eggs
Yes.
Yes.
freezing to their
That's-
daughters.
They do. So there
Yeah.
are
Excuse me?
grandmothers who gift it to their
Whoa.
21-year-old granddaughters so that they can do their egg harvesting
And
and
go
go
out and
about
swirl
their
it
life.
around and live their
What?
life. Yep, and come on back.
Mhm.
We are late to the party on every important
Yes.
conversation in
Whoa.
our community. Not
Mhm.
only are we late to the party, when we find out what's going on at the party, we like, oh, why would we want to do that?
Right.
Why would we want to have IVF?
Yeah.
It just ain't in it for you. God just ain't-
exactly.
That's what that's
Yeah.
our
Exactly.
default.
Or
Is when
we're-
if God wanted it to
yeah.
happen,
It would happen.
it would
Exactly.
happen.
Or we're made, we're guilt tripped because of decisions we might have made when we were younger.
Mhm.
Some people say, well, I can't have this baby right now. I'm going to have an abortion.
Mhm.
And then they say, well, you shouldn't have had that abortion, or you shouldn't went. We had to send you down
I
south.
actually wanted to talk about abortions,
Yeah.
but not in the sense, obviously not in the sense of right or wrong, because baby, that is your
Mhm.
business. But the effects of abortion,
Oh,
and
yeah.
I don't know if anybody here is qualified to mention these effects. If not,
Mhm.
we can move on. But I don't feel like we ever talk about what actually happens to your body as a result of an abortion.
The physical.
I can't speak. I've never experienced it. I've had people around me who have. And, what I can speak to, not just the physical, I guess what they describe to me is just an emptiness, but really more so it's the psychological and emotional pain that they go
Yeah,
through.
because you have to carry that on your own. I'm going to be honest. I've had 3 abortions, just so y'all know. And one in college. I didn't know I was pregnant. What is going on? I just started having sex in college. Went to the clinic, and they said, you're pregnant. I didn't know. But at the time, the actual doctor who performed the procedure was a Morehouse man. And I was awake for the procedure. It was horrible. He actually said that my cervix tore a little
I'm
bit.
sorry, wait a minute.
I
I
was
don't know.
awake.
I don't know much about this procedure, but you're not
So
supposed to be awake, right?
no, you can. There's
No.
different methods. So you can be awake and they
Ooh.
numb you. You can be put to sleep, or you can do the peel.
Yeah.
For this one, I said I want to be awake because at the time I was vegan. I was aware of my body. I was physically active. I want to know what's going on. At least I can be awake because I'm not going to have this baby, right? It was traumatizing, so to say the least. And he also said, "Oh, I tore your cervix."
Not my bad.
Right. Oh,
But it's
By
that
the way.
that you're, again, culturally, we're told, you shouldn't be having this procedure. And from there, I think when my cycle finally came back around, it was the worst pain I had ever felt in my entire life. Because the lining, it's you're being sucked out. Not to say that, I support women who have any type of experience in their reproductive health. I went with friends who had to have the procedure as well. But I can say that was the only complication I've ever had with an abortion. After that, I never did that way again.
Yeah.
I was put to sleep for the other ones. But some women, I don't know exactly the extent of the physical harm that could be done to your womb, but that experience did stick with me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can. I mean, I cannot imagine being awake for any type of procedure. That is next level right there. But I can just imagine what you put yourself through after having to make such tough decisions. And I really just want to be able to use this platform to bring a different perspective to all of the conversations, because it seems like they're just, it's like hitting a repeat.
Yeah.
It's, every conversation is just on repeat, and it's a lot of judgment and not very much solution. And so my thing is, these things are happening, right? They're happening. What can we do to either prevent them, help you manage it, like work through it, something? What is the solution in all of this? So I really just appreciate the work that you all are doing, like the fact that you have dedicated your life to this mission. I just want to give y'all flowers. I should have had some flowers here, y'all. We could have made this a thing. But seriously, to have gone through, your own experiences, and to not just say it stops here. Like, I've done it, but now I want to help somebody else do it. That is big.
Right.
Dr. Maya, you ain't got to be doing it. You are Dr. Maya.
Right.
Dr. Maya said it's more than just medicine, right?
It's more than just medicine.
Yeah.
It's more than just medicine, because there are women out there needlessly suffering, and they don't have to be.
Don't have to.
Crying themselves to sleep at night because they think that their journey to motherhood has been shut down and it's over, and it's not.
Yeah.
It's not.
I'm 27, and you are the first person, like Black woman, that I've known to have IVF.
Wow.
Because it's not talked
Really?
about.
Wow.
And she's not the first one, she's just the first one you heard
To
talk
hear
about it, because
it.
it's not talked
It's not
about.
talked about.
You're
And
right
I
about
don't know
that.
if there's well, I think you explained it perfectly. There is almost like a sense of shame
It
of I
is.
couldn't. This is, and I say that, and now that I'm talking through it, I definitely experienced some shame through having to have a C-section. Probably that similar thing of why can't my body do
Exactly.
what it's naturally supposed to do? So I can definitely understand.
I felt like my body had betrayed me.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So I'm like, this is what I was created to do. I can't do it. So there was definitely a feeling of shame, loneliness, isolation. I mean, I'm going to my IVF clinics with glasses on and a hoodie, hoping I don't see nobody that I know. I actually did one day, and I was like, hey, and then
But
just
she
kept
had
it
too.
moving.
We
But
both
she
gonna
had
say,
to- I
but-
mean, I'm just like, oh, hey,
This is
girl.
awkward.
So, but it's that whole thing, and I thought I was by myself in this, and then come to find out, Black love to say, come to find out, my sister-in-law had gone through IVF. I had no idea.
Wow.
She didn't sell it. She didn't say it to anybody, but that's just like it's
Secret.
more common than you think it is. We just don't talk about
Same
it
with
enough.
postpartum anxiety and depression. So I thought I was going crazy, and I was very afraid. Like, my family was too. I had never had
Yeah.
any type of mental health issues before, but I couldn't sleep. I was really traumatized by my ICU stay, and it wasn't anything that the nurses did. It was just when they put me over there, I seen people on their deathbed, and so I thought I was next.
Yeah.
And it was very traumatizing to me. But you know, in my community, if you say, you know, you may need help, oh, you crazy.
Yeah.
We don't go
Mhm.
sit on nobody's couch. But I promise
Mhm.
you, I'm not ashamed to say I take my anxiety medicine still to this day.
Mhm.
And I see a therapist because
Yes.
I know that
Mhm.
I need help. And I try to explain this to people, like, if you have a headache,
Mhm.
you take Tylenol for that headache, right?
Right.
You go see about that headache. So it's the same thing. You have to,
Mhm.
I would, if I had one hope for our community, it would be to go see about your mental health
Mhm.
and don't be
Yeah.
ashamed.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I've just been saying to myself and to anybody who would listen that they need to send you home with a lactation consultant
Yes.
and a damn therapist.
Indeed.
Because what am I supposed to do with this baby? You just
Right.
Yeah.
I know it's mine, but you just gonna leave me
Right,
here with
Right.
this baby?
Right. They do not
That's a
come with an
thing.
instruction
It
manual.
doesn't come with
No.
instructions. It doesn't come with a support line, a hotline, an assistant,
Yeah.
a cook,
Mhm.
anything.
So that's why I published a postpartum workbook and journal, and it's
Mm.
entitled "Everything Is Going to Be Okay."
Oh.
And I titled it because one of the ICU nurses said that to me, and I really believed her. She made me believe that, and everything did turn out to be okay. It just it wasn't okay at the time, but it did end up
You
being
got through it,
okay.
okay.
Yeah.
And so now I'm in the works of trying to get my workbook to be covered by insurances, because you're right.
That's beautiful.
Once you go home, that's, you know, you're on your own. They
On
give you a
your own,
folder with,
honey.
like, you know, resources to WIC or whatever else, but we need real resources
Yeah.
and real help.
And as pediatricians, we do screen the moms when they bring their babies in for their newborn exam, you know, to make sure the mother is okay.
Yeah, but you're scared to circle yes on any of these
Exactly.
things.
Exactly.
Exactly.
So what do you do?
So
If you truly feel like, okay, something is probably really going on, but
it really, at least for me, because I had the same, I didn't know it was PTSD. First of all, let me just say that. I didn't know it was PTSD because my mind was so focused on, I got to get to this NICU and take care of my baby. It's the pandemic. Can't nobody take care of her. I can't be there. So let me do what I need to do. So I pushed all of my feelings to the side. It wasn't until on the other side of that experience that I realized this was some PTSD. There was some anxiety in here. There was some depression in this. And I was like, okay. And it took my family to see the change and the difference in me to really just encourage me. I also knew something was not quite right as well. And so I reached out on my own. But I think it's that whole thing of, you know, we have to be our sister's keeper sometimes because a lot of times we're not going to say anything about it.
Right.
But if you notice your friend is going through, girl, come
Yes.
on, let's
Yeah.
just sit down. Let's just be
Yes.
real and talk about this.
Yep.
So that helped me talking to my friends. What I found in birthing is, you know, the pregnancy process, it could either be traumatizing or healing. And at the same time that can be the same. But hearing Fran's stories about IVF, knowing that my friend goes to see a therapist, this last pregnancy that I had, I decided to go in. I had high blood pressure. I said, oh, something's wrong. My heart is beating too fast. Went in, they did an ultrasound, the baby was okay. They gave me some calcium, magnesium. They said, well, have you really been eating? Oh, I was stressed. School was starting back for the other children. My father had moved in with me. I hadn't been with my father since I was like 16. And it triggered some trauma. Decided to go see a therapist, found out I had PTSD as well. So I too take anxiety meds daily and go see my therapist every other week. But it wasn't until we had these real conversations like we're having where I said, you know what? I'm not the only one who feels this way. I'm not the only one. Let me find the resources. Let me go back through those folders that we get when we go to the doctor and say, hey, if you're ever feeling like this, here's a hotline number. Call it. They're not going to take your baby. CPS ain't going to come.
They will not take
you
your
might
baby.
have to check in somewhere once or twice if it's to the extreme, but it's for your health.
It's for your health.
It's for your health.
It really is.
And I think it's important to note that postpartum can be depression as well as anxiety. We often leave off that anxiety
part. Yeah.
But when you get home with that baby, and you got to make sure that baby breathing every moment of the day,
Right.
the anxiety will overcome you if you don't recognize it, if you don't have support. Like when I think about single mothers or teen mothers, and I was a whole ass, grown ass 35-year-old woman and still didn't know what I was doing. we just got to do better. And I know that this
Yeah.
podcast
Yes.
episode is not going to get policy changed, like, but
Yeah.
something has to be
It's
done.
a step in the right direction.
Yes.
At least getting the awareness out there
Yes.
and helping people to understand that A, you have a voice. B, you have to advocate for yourself, even if
Yes.
nobody else will. And C, you have options. You absolutely have options.
So when I'm talking to my moms sometimes that are struggling, I use an analogy, and some people look at me like, "What? You crazy?" But it's like having a baby is like having a pet. And don't listen, hear me out. You know, when you were younger and you asked your parents for a pet and you really, really wanted it, and then when you got it, you was like, "Oh, this is a lot of responsibility.
Yeah.
I gotta feed this
I gotta
dog.
walk it.
I gotta walk this dog. I gotta train this dog." With a dog, you can rehome, or you know, you guys can pass it on to somebody else. But with a child, that's not the case. You're
Mhm.
stuck.
Mhm.
So sometimes we have hiccups where we're surprised with pregnancy, but going back to what we were saying earlier, it's really good that you plan for it
Yeah.
and make sure that that's what you really want.
As much as you can,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
You know, because things do happen.
You're
but
right.
my point was to say, making sure your physical body is in the best shape that it can be, as well as your mental
Yes.
health,
Yeah.
before you proceed to doing something like this. It's a big undertaking to be a
Yes.
mother. It
And
really
it does
is.
not stop, okay?
No.
Because the kid is still at my house. I'd be like, dang, this little boy is still, baby, he is still here. This is crazy. So, listen, I had to end on a joke, okay? Because this was heavy,
Yes.
all right?
Yes.
Let us know in the
yes.
comments what you have learned. And please share this episode with somebody, okay?
Yes.
Even if you
Yes.
don't know someone who needs it, just share it because someone you send it to is going to need the solutions
Yes.
that we shared on this conversation. I will make sure that I link all of the ladies' info down below so that you can stay connected with them. If you need a doula, if you need an advocate, if you need a doctor, baby, we got you covered.
Hey.
Okay? Let us know if you enjoyed this conversation. Make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on any upcoming episodes, and we will see you next week. If you enjoyed that episode, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on any upcoming content, and take it a step further and go ahead and join our private community over on Patreon because it comes with some pretty bomb perks, including early and discounted access to our upcoming events, behind the scene exclusives with some of your favorite guests, the opportunity to call in on an upcoming show, the chance to vote on topics and guests for brand new shows, and I'm even giving you unlimited access to my vault of business classes where I'm teaching you everything from Airbnb to developing digital products and everything in between. And you can get access to our Patreon for as little as $5 a month, okay? Get in where you fit in, and I'll see you on the inside. Peace.